I'm 94 years old. I don't say that with pride or disbelief anymore. I say it because time has thinned out everything else, and what's left deserves to be named honestly. Most mornings are slow, not in a charming way, in a careful way. I listen to my body before I move. I count my steps without meaning to. I notice how quiet the world gets when you've outlived most of the people who once filled it. When you reach this age, you don't have many illusions left. They fall away on their own. And somewhere along the way, I stopped caring about certain things that once ruled my days. Not because I became better than them, because they stopped making sense. There are 6, I think, maybe more, but these are the ones that still come to mind when I sit here in the afternoon light and take inventory of my life. The first thing I stopped caring about was being impressive. I spent a long time trying to look like I had it together, even when I didn't, especially when I didn't. I dressed for it, spoke for it, held my shoulders a certain way so no one would guess how unsure I was. I wanted people to think I was capable, intelligent, worth listening to. I wanted my life to look like something that made sense from the outside. I don't remember when that urge faded exactly. It wasn't a single moment. It was more like noticing I was tired of performing even when no one was watching. At this age, there's no audience left. Or maybe there never was one to begin with. The truth is, the people I tried to impress were too busy worrying about themselves to notice my effort, and the ones who did notice didn't stay anyway. What stayed was the tension, the constant self-editing, the fear of being seen clearly. I don't care about that anymore. I speak slower now. I don't explain myself as much. If someone misunderstands me, I let it rest. It's a relief I didn't know was possible when I was younger. The second thing I stopped caring about was staying agreeable. I was raised to be pleasant, to smooth things over, to not make a fuss. I learned early that being easy made life easier, at least on the surface. So I swallowed opinions. I laughed at things I didn't find funny. I said yes when I meant no, and then wondered why I felt resentful later. I thought kindness meant silence. I thought love meant compliance. What I didn't understand was that every time I abandoned my own voice, something in me shrank a little. Nothing dramatic, just a quiet retreat. By the time I noticed, years had passed. Now, when I don't agree, I don't rush to soften it. I'm not cruel, I'm just honest, and if honesty costs me approval, I let it go. At 94, you don't have the energy to be liked at the expense of yourself, and you finally understand that being agreeable never guaranteed closeness anyway. The third thing I stopped caring about was being busy. I once filled every hour like it was a moral duty. If I wasn't productive, I felt uneasy, like I was wasting something precious. I volunteered for things I didn't care about. I kept routines long after they stopped serving me. I mistook exhaustion for purpose. People praised me for it. That didn't help. Busyness gave me an excuse not to feel things I didn't want to feel. Grief, loneliness, doubt. It kept me moving just fast enough that I didn't have to sit with myself. But time has a way of slowing you down, whether you agree or not. When my body started setting limits, I had no choice but to stop. And in that stillness, I realized how much of my life I had rushed through without ever arriving. I don't miss the busyness. I miss the moments I didn't notice because I was too busy trying to justify my existence. The fourth thing I stopped caring about was being right. I argued for sport once, for pride, for the quiet satisfaction of winning a conversation. I believed that clarity came from correction, that truth needed to be defended sharply. I can still remember the heat of those moments, the tightening in my chest, the rehearsed comebacks, the silence that followed when the other person gave up. I mistook that silence for victory. What I see now is how many connections I bruised without realizing it. How many people stopped sharing parts of themselves with me because they didn't want to be challenged every time they spoke. Being right didn't make me wiser, it made me lonely. These days, I listen more than I speak, not because I have nothing to say, but because I understand how rare it is for someone to feel truly heard. If something doesn't need correcting, I leave it alone. Peace has become more valuable to me than precision. The fifth thing I stopped caring about was the life I thought I was supposed to have. I carried that image for decades. A certain kind of marriage, a certain level of success, a sense that I was on schedule, keeping up, doing it properly. When my life veered off that imagined path, I felt like I had failed some invisible test. Even when things were good, I worried they weren't good in the right way. I compared myself constantly, quietly, cruelly. It took me a long time to realize that the life I was measuring myself against didn't exist. It was a story stitched together from expectations, other people's choices, and my own fears. My actual life was happening while I was busy judging it. Now, when I look back, the moments that mattered most were never on that imagined timeline. They were ordinary, unplanned, often inconvenient. I stopped caring about how my life looked from a distance. I started caring about how it felt to be inside it. The sixth thing I stopped caring about was the idea that there would always be more time. This one hurts the most. I assumed time was generous, that conversations could be postponed, that apologies could wait, that people would be there when I was finally ready to show up fully. I lived like the important moments could be rescheduled. They can't. I lost people without ever having the chance to say what I meant to say. Not because I didn't care, but because I assumed I'd get around to it. That assumption follows me now in the quiet hours. At 94, time feels very specific. Every day has weight. Every goodbye is final in a way it never was before. I don't waste time on small grievances anymore. I don't hold on to distance out of pride. If something needs to be said, I say it, gently if I can. But honestly, there's no virtue in delay when time is this short. I don't know who's listening to this or how old you are. I don't know what you're carrying or what you're putting off. I won't tell you what to do. I don't have that authority. I only have the evidence of my own life. I stopped caring about these things because they asked too much and gave too little. They promised safety and delivered distance. They promised meaning and delivered noise. What I care about now is simple: being present, being honest, being kind without erasing myself. Most of my life is behind me. That's just the truth. And when I look back, the regrets aren't loud. They're quiet. They're about waiting, about assuming, about not realizing how fragile everything was while I still had it in my hands. If this meant something to you, if it stirred something uncomfortable or familiar, don't rush past that feeling. Sit with it for a moment. That's what I do now. Sit. Remember. Let things be what they are. The light fades earlier these days. I notice it. I don't fight it anymore. I've stopped caring about a lot. What's left is enough.